Brian Kemble is, of course, the curator of Ruth Bancroft Gardens. He's been there for 40 plus years. It's a wonderful garden. If you've never been there, it's the best 2.5 acres of a botanic garden in the world, in my opinion. It's crammed with artistically arranged wonderful plants, and Brian's largely responsible for that. Brian's traveled the world. He grows just about everything. He's a great agave hybridizer, among many other things. So please give him a big hand for his program on Mangaves.
My talk is on Mangaves. Now, we see a lot of Mangaves in horticulture in recent years, and they're sort of like the new kid on the block horticulturally. And so it's important to realize that a Mangave is a cross between a Manfreda and an agave. So it used to be agave was considered a sister genus to Manfreda. And so Manfredas have softer, more pliable leaves, a bulb-like swelling at the base. And because of that bulb-like swelling at the base, many of them can go deciduous, which a normal agave does not do. And that trait enabled them to go much farther north because they could then go dormant in the wintertime. And so they occur all the way up to Virginia, Manfreda virginica. And so that's a difference between agaves and Manfredas. Now, they are very closely related, and many people now consider Manfreda to be a subgenus within agave rather than a separate genus. And if you go with that taxonomy, then a Mangave is simply an agave. But in horticulture, they're always called Mangaves, and so that's what I'm calling them too. Now, almost everybody knows what an agave looks like, but Manfredas are much less familiar. So the first part of this talk, I'm going to introduce you to some Manfredas. Okay, so true species Manfredas. Now, in addition to having softer, pliable leaves than an agave, Manfredas also oftentimes have purple or dark red splotches on the leaves. And that is one of the reasons why this whole Mangave craze got started. Because people thought, ooh, you could get the purple spots on an agave-like plant and make something really wonderful. So that was an impetus for doing it. And so here is Manfreda maculosa, and it is one of a couple of species that have flowers that change color. So if you notice the inflorescence, they're pale white at the beginning, and then turn pink, and then finally sort of a purpley pink as the flower ages. So that's a neat trait too. And Manfreda longiflora does this as well. You can see the flowers changing color. And in this case, the purple splotches are like little speckles rather than large splotches. Manfreda brunea, here again, it's like purple dashes on the leaf. Beautiful bluish leaf, a little bit of undulation there. And the name brunea, well, look at those petals. They're quite brown and sharply recurved. And here we're seeing a trait that a lot of Manfredas have, which is very long stamens. Gives the flower a spidery look. Manfreda holliscana. This is a picture of it in a botanic garden. And Julia and I were traveling around in Mexico a few weeks ago, and we came to what I think is it in flower. And so here you see the inflorescences were about 6 or 7 feet tall, and the flowers were a greenish yellow color, but the stamens could be red, like you see on the left, or they could be a yellowish green, like you see on the right. Same population. Manfreda potosina looks quite different from the other Manfredas florally. Does not have real long spidery stamens at all, and these weird greenish flowers. I don't think anybody's using this one in hybrids because I don't know what you would be aiming for. Manfreda sileri, another wonderful trait that Manfredas can have is super undulate leaves, and this one really shows you that. Manfreda species. Ruth Bancroft got this plant many years ago, labeled Manfreda marmorata, but that's not a real name. And what is it actually? Well, I don't know, but there it is. It's got undulate leaves, purple spots, and yellow flowers, really a denser inflorescence than most Manfredas have. And I've used this one in crosses, even though I don't know what it actually is. And another Manfreda, this is one that John Bleck was growing with very green leaves. They don't always have purple spots. Since purple spots is a large part of what people are aiming for when they make Mangave hybrids, this species probably would not get used. But I do like those wine red flowers. So in this case, the outside of the flower is sort of a mint ice cream pale green, and then the inside is that burgundy red, which is a kind of a nice combination. Another Manfreda species with a similar color, but with much denser inflorescence. Again, this was in a botanic garden, just labeled Manfreda spa, so that's what I'm calling it too. And another one with very undulate leaves and very long red stamens. And yet another one with maybe less attractive flowers, but really cool leaves. Looks like, chocolate chip might be derived from something like this. Another Manfreda species with rather small spots, but beautiful reddish flowers. There is no book on Manfredas. You know, when Gentry wrote his book on agave, he did not include the Manfredas because at that point they were considered a separate genus, and they've never had a book written on them. But we could use one. Then I could figure out what all these spas are. And this is a hybrid I made. So I crossed Manfreda brunea with little dashes on the leaf with another Manfreda spa that had purple spots, and I was trying to get the spots and the dashes, so DA for that, and I thought it came out pretty nice. Okay, now also related to these are polyanthes. So again, polyanthes was considered a sister genus to agave along with Manfreda, and they have also got moved into agave too in the new classification. But polyanthes are well known as the tuberose with their very fragrant flowers. And I grew up in Hawaii, and that's a very popular flower to make leis out of because they're so fragrant. So Polyanthes tuberosa, the tuberose. As an agave, it's agave amica. And this is Dylan Hannon in Mexico. He found a population of Polyanthes pringlei, or agave neopringlei, in full flower, just hundreds and hundreds of plants in flower. Really quite a sight. And Polyanthes geminiflora, or agave cotocapnia, with very red flowers. And this one, I think, should be used in hybrids to get red, because red, a bright red like this would be a wonderful thing to have an agave with that color. And Polyanthes howardii, also red, but with a green mouth. And then this is a third former genus that's been swept into the Manfreda group in agave, formerly Procneanthes mexicana, now agave bulliana, but with bell-like flowers. That's not a very good photo, but I didn't have a better one. Okay, now let's look at some of the mangaves. Okay, so this is Mangave macho mocha. So this is the first Mangave that really came onto the horticultural scene and caused a sensation because people hadn't thought of crossing Manfredas and agaves. And it's a beautiful plant with very purplish color to it. And it showed us that the purple that's on the spots in a Manfreda could sort of make a purple wash on the whole plant in a hybrid. And quite a number of them have this trait. Macho Mocha was introduced by a Yucadú nursery in Texas, and it came from actually a natural population of Manfredas in northeast Mexico. And when those seeds were grown out, most of the plants were Manfredas, just like the parent was, but a few of them grew bigger and looked different, and it became apparent as they grew up that they were actually a cross with an agave. And the only agave that grows in that area is agave mitis. So presumably that would be what the other parent was with the Manfreda. So here we have agave mitis on the right, and its flowers in the middle, and then Macho Mocha flowers on the left. So you can see that green on the outside, purple on the inside color from the agave mitis made it into the hybrid. But the flowers are arranged differently and not as tightly packed together with the Manfreda in there. Okay, now I really like that plant, agave Macho Mocha, and I had the idea to cross it with this one, agave Pablo Carrillo, which has nice undulate leaves and these orangey yellow flowers, to see what that would do. And this is the result, Mangave purple ribbons. So the young plant is on the left, the mature plant coming into flower in the middle, and a close-up of the flowers on the right. I really like that flower. So it's green at the base, and then kind of orangey, and then has reds in the stamen. So it's really got a nice mix of colors to it. So one of the difficulties with mangaves is they tend not to last that long before they go into flower. So might be 6, 8, 10 years or so, but not decades like an agave often is. But usually they do offset before they go by, and that's true of this one too. You can see in the middle picture, right at the center, there's a little offset starting to come, and so it did make an offset, and I was able to grow that. Okay, well, when Macho Mocha came along, for us it was like a new thing. Oh, wow, you can cross a Manfreda with an agave. Well, it turns out this was known a long time ago. This is agave roveliana, described in 1889, and then redescribed as agave terracianoi in 1893. And you can see in the description here in German, it says numerous cloudy blood red stains. And you can see that in the illustration there. So even back in 1893, when this drawing was done, there was already Mangave depicted. We don't know actually where exactly in nature this came from, and therefore what the Manfreda and the agave parents were, but clearly it is one. Okay, so some of my crosses of mangaves. So this on the left is agave parasana, and on the right is a Manfreda hybrid I did, Dit Da, and so I crossed the two of those together and got Blue Fountain. Now, from a distance, you see this eruption of blue leaves like a fountain, but the markings on it are not obvious until you get quite close. That's why I took the close-up picture on the right. And there it is in flower on the left, close-up of the flowers in the middle. And then as the plant goes into flower, the leaves start to get some color on them, and the spots show up a lot more, and that's the close-up on the right. Now, what was amazing to me about this is that that inflorescence from the first flower to the last flower was almost 6 months, which is really long for either an agave or a Manfreda. I don't know why it was so extended. And then, again, agave parasana on the left, and this time I crossed it with this Manfreda here, and there's the result. So you can see the Manfreda spots on it and the agave teeth. As this one grew up, I found it not to be so interesting, and I never named it, but just to show you an example of crossing a Manfreda with an agave. And this is another Mangave hybrid I did, crossing enormous agave marmorata with a Manfreda hybrid and got these amazing speckles and spots and splotches and colors. It's really pretty sensational. This one has so far got to be about 6 feet by 6 feet, and I don't know, it's still growing. Who knows how big it'll get? But I really think that's pretty cool spotting. Okay, now the person who's done the most crossing of Mangaves is Hans Hansen at Walter's Gardens. And he's produced all these ones that you see around, from Silver Fox to, Maya Queen and so on and so forth. He's made a great number of them in all shapes and forms. And so I'm just going to show a selection of those. But first, let's look at the anatomy of one of them, Silver Fox. So that started with somebody else's Mangave, and that was Bloodspot. And Bloodspot is a hybrid between Agave macroacantha. Here you see the rosette on the left and the flower on the right. And Manfreda maculosa, rosette on the left and flower on the right. And those two were crossed to give us Bloodspot. And it's a beautiful Mangave. The flowers may be less than sensational, but they're nice. So then Hans crossed that with Agave Pablo Carrilloii, and here we see the rosette on the left and the orangey flowers on the right, and that's how we got Silver Fox. So that's Silver Fox in the shade on the left and the sun in the middle, and its flowers on the right. So the flowers have a little bit of that egg yolk yellow color from the Pablo Carrilloii, but much less large in fluorescence. Okay, now just some other of the Mangaves that Hans produced. Bad Hair Day. Center of attention, no doubt, because the red stripe in the middle draws your attention. Ink Blot. Dark, dark purple, almost black spots. Lavender Lady. I think this one's excellent Mangave. It grows very well for us at the Bancroft Garden in partial shade, and it has this lovely lavender tinge and subtle speckling on the leaves. Man of Steel. Looks like it must have something like Agave striata in it to get the leaves that narrow. Mission to Mars. I love this color, and we planted quite a few of them at the Bancroft Garden, not realizing how big they would get, but it got to be maybe about 5 feet across, but really a sensational plant. Now, this is a good example of Mangaves are oftentimes very sculptural and beautiful as a single plant, but after they flower, they tend to then make a bunch of offsets and become a rather untidy clump. And if you don't like that look, simply remove all those heads and reroot them and go back to single plants, because that's how they look the most elegant, in my opinion. Pineapple Punch. Looks a lot like Kaleidoscope, yeah. Praying Hands. This one's really unique one. You might think that maybe Hans overdid it on releasing Mangaves, and there are too many that are similar to one another. I would agree with that. Snow Leopard. Spotty Dotty. Tooth Fairy with very dramatic teeth. Looks like it might have Agave Shawai in it to get the teeth like that. Okay, and now I'm going to show you some Mangaves that Nathan Wong grew in Hawaii. Nathan died a few years ago, but he was a big fan of succulents in general and made some Mangave hybrids himself. But he grew them together with ones that other people had done in Hawaii, and I don't know whose are whose, but I just thought they looked pretty cool, so I'm just going to show you them. They're without names. That one has Nizan densis in it. And we don't usually use Nizan densis in hybrids because it's such a wimp in terms of cold tolerance, but it could make a neat hybrid. So that's the end. Now, there are lots more things one could do. One could introduce polyanthes into the mix to get flower fragrance. Imagine an agave that smelled like a tuberose. That'd be terrific. You could cross with some of the red-flowered polyanthes to get red flowers, and that hasn't been pursued yet. So there's lots more experimentation to be done.